All right, we can go ahead and get started. So thank you for coming. I know it's the last session of DrupalCorn Camp, so I appreciate some turnout. This is the Site Builder's Guide to Project Management. If you want to follow along, the slides are available at this link. So my name is Genevieve Johnson. You can find me around Drupal and IRC as Jen Johnson. I work for the University of Iowa in Central ITS. I'm a web developer there, and I've been working with Drupal for about 5 years. And my role with Drupal has really changed over that time. So I started as just a content editor and got into doing some site building, and then a little bit of theming, and then custom module development. So I've really kind of had to wear all the different Drupal hats. And so now with that experience comes someone thinking that I know enough to actually run and manage my own projects without actually having formal experience. And I think that's a role that a lot of people in the Drupal community find themselves in, especially when a lot of us work on very small teams or by ourselves. You don't always have the support of a team that's going to have a project manager. Or in my case, we have some project managers available, but they work with all of ITS, so they aren't always available to be on all of our projects. So for every project, there are 3 groups of things that I think are really important to get to know at the beginning. So the first is what I loosely call the site owners. So these are the people that are going to be responsible for the site after development is done. They're going to handle the content. They're going to know who the users of the site are, or they might actually be the users of the site and the site visitors. And they're the ones who are hopefully coming to you with a plan or some idea of what they want, but they probably don't always know exactly what they want. There are going to be times where you may need to make recommendations of how something should be handled or displayed on the site. And so knowing what their goals are for the site and what their target audience is can really help to form some of your recommendations. So the better you know them and their organization, I think the better some of those recommendations can be made. It also helps to know who the decision makers are on their side, because you really want to know who can champion your ideas and get some buy-in when there's a difficult decision to be made. It's also, you should know your development team. So if you're working by yourself, great, you're done. You know what you like to do. But when you start working with more and more people, it can be really hard to know, what does everyone like to do? What are the things that they don't like to do, or maybe they just aren't as comfortable doing it if they don't have the experience. It's a great way to help them find tasks throughout the project to help them improve their skills or to do what they're good at. I know we like to do a little bit of cross-training on our team, but everyone still has a specialty. And then knowing the project. What is it that the site owners want you to build for them? What are their functional requirements? Who's going to use the end product? And not just what the goals are of the site owners, but how they're going to measure them. So, when someone just says vaguely, well, we want to redesign our website because we want to, get more traffic on the site, that could mean different things to different people. More traffic could mean they want to increase the number of people coming to the site. It could also mean they just want people to go through more of the content on their site and spend more time there. So really fleshing out what they mean. So once you know what you're building, how do you keep track of that? And the requirements always change. I don't, even the simplest project I've had with the most upfront requirements, they change over time. There are a number of task tracking software solutions available. Everything from Trello, Basecamp, ActiveCollab. I've used a lot of these, not all of them. And I don't have one clear recommendation. I think you need to find the tool that's going to work for you and your team.
What is these? Are these different from these or task software tracking within Drupal?
No, these are outside of Drupal. So
just like any PM project or any other Microsoft project or anything?
Yep. A lot of teams will use Jira. That's not up here. So,
okay.
So there are a lot of options for
these
keeping track.
Where? freeware options?
Some of these are free, not all of them.
Trellis for the base campus has a free version and then a paid version.
Yeah, and I don't quite remember. I think some of them have, like, I think Asana maybe has some that's free, but then you get more than so many users, and I think you maybe have to pay for it. I don't quite remember. So it's just something to investigate. I just want you to know that what I'm talking about isn't necessarily specific to just one tool. So within whatever tool you're doing, what I have found to be really helpful is to have an overview of each of the features that you have to build out for the site. And when I say feature, this doesn't necessarily correlate to one feature. If you were to use the features module in Drupal to export your configuration into code, this could encompass multiple features, multiple modules. It's just an overview of what you have to build out to kind of have a large picture overview of something for the client. So in our case here on this example, we tried to document where this content type or vocabulary was going to be used, how the nodes related to each other, what users or roles would be interacting with the content type to get a rough idea for the permissions that we would have to implement here, along with the content that would be displayed on these pages. And that just kind of helped us guide the rest of the tasks and to make sure that we were asking the right questions of our clients when we got into meetings. It helps just kind of bring up some of the holes in your questioning. All right, so you have an overview, and now you have to actually put together tasks. So this is a real example of a task that was in one of my projects. It simply had the title Mockups with a due date that was assigned to somebody. Now, I don't know about you, but I have no idea what the deliverable was supposed to be for this. So I go and I'm talking with the person that this is assigned to, and I said, hey, someone else created this task. They assigned it to you. What are we supposed to be doing? Well, he didn't know. So we closed out the task, only to have the person that created it wonder why we closed it without giving the client a deliverable. And so just being really clear, what needs to actually be done. So actionable tasks hopefully have a better title. So in this case, this is actually a bug report, but any webmaster can transfer the website ownership. And then we like to break out in our body area, what the problem is. If we have a proposed solution, to summarize what that is, steps to recreate issues if this is a bug report, or any other supporting documentation. And so when it's really clear from your task what needs to be done, there's a better chance that things will get done. All right, so then we've played around quite a bit with how to organize our tasks. It can be really daunting when you look at one giant list of all these things you're supposed to be doing. So we've tried to create some buckets for ourselves. So we start with this 1.0 release, or whatever iteration this is. This is like our go live blockers for the website. Our 1.0 release wish list is where we put the things that the client would really like us to get to before they go live if they happen to have time and money left. And we've already done all the things in the 1.0 release bucket, but if we don't get to them, we can still launch their website. The go live bucket is where we put developer tasks that need to be done right before the site goes live. So for us, this is things like making sure that Google Analytics is configured on the website. If there are DNS changes that need to be done, we might have a task about that, so that sort of thing. And then future iterations is where we dump any other requests the client has. Something they want, they might want, they're kind of just thinking about, we document it there, that we could do in the future after their website has launched or we have finished that next round of work. And then there are a few you can kind of see that have little check boxes. So we worked in sprints on this project, and so for every 1 or 2 weeks, we would pull out from our 1.0 release the tasks that we were going to focus on for that time, and that just helped us have a clear focus of what we were doing, so it wasn't so overwhelming to go into the system and try to re-pick out every single time you were in there every day what you're supposed to be working on. So then this brings up the question of, okay, we've created our tasks, we've organized them, now who's doing what? I like to try and have members of the team pick what they think they can work on within our own sprints so that they're picking what they're more interested in or what they feel comfortable doing. But also only assigning a task to one person. So even if there might be 2 or 3 people working on it, we assign it to one so that they're a point person. When I have a question about the status of the issue, I can go talk to them, and they're ultimately responsible for getting it done. So they might delegate some of the work, but they are responsible for it. That just makes it clear that they are responsible, because if you have 3 people assigned to one task, and everyone thinks that someone else is doing it, nothing happens. So, multitasking absolutely kills productivity. And while it can't always be avoided, there are some ways to reduce the multitasking that happens. So like we can see from this graph that after you're working on 2 things or 2 projects at a time, your productivity just plummets, which isn't great for anybody. So like with my group, it's not uncommon that we're assigned to maybe 2 or 3 projects at the same time, but we do try to focus our work. Maybe 1 or 2 weeks we'll focus on project A, and then we'll take a break from that for the next week and focus on project B. So it reduces some of that context switching that you might have to do, and that's where you lose a lot of time. And sometimes you have to get even more granular than that, so it might be even just 1 day or even just a half a day that you devote to one project, but just still reducing all of those switches. We've also started using some other tools. We've been using Slack. Some groups use HipChat to do more of instant messaging-esque sort of communication, and it keeps us all from walking over to each other's desks all the time and interrupting each other. So a coworker can send me a message because it's on their mind, they want to know, but I don't have to respond right away. I can let it sit for a while I'm working on my task, so it keeps me focused. So that's also a great thing. So it's super important that everyone knows what should be done and how it should be done. And it's really easy to do talking about it and everyone thinks that they're on the same page, but really making sure that you're documenting somewhere, even at least loosely, what the procedures and expectations are can be really helpful. It just gives you something to point at when someone forgets, oh hey, how were we going to name all of our features on this project? What were those conventions? You can say, hey, we wrote that down. We had a meeting about it. Go, look at our notes from that. It also helps, like I told a coworker, hey, I want you to go build out a feature or a content type. And they went and they did some work, and they came back and they said, okay, I'm done. And I looked at it and I said, well, that's not at all what I was expecting them to do, but I didn't clearly define what building out a content type meant to me. So then they had to go back and do some more work. So, you can update things as needed. So, had I written it down, and then they came back and did work, and I realized, oh, I forgot something, you just go back and add it, and you build your documentation maybe over the course of a project. But, it just helps to have something there, and something that is accessible to everyone. And I like to have it as a document that anyone can edit if they want to. All right, we all spend a lot of time in meetings, and some are more productive than others. So what I have found to be helpful to have a productive meeting is to send the agenda to all of the attendees at least a day ahead of the meeting, if not more, especially if they're going to have deliverables to bring to the meeting. And in the agenda, I like to include not only what we're going to talk about, but the purpose of the meeting, the goals, and what we're hoping to have as the outcomes. I just think that really helps everyone prepare and know what's expected to be done and why the meeting is a valuable use of everyone's time. And it's really easy for everyone who's involved with a project to want to come to a meeting, especially if you're showing something off. The clients everyone in a whole department will want to come see it, which is it's great that they're really excited, but when it comes time to making decisions, you really want to make sure that your decision makers are there, that they're prepared to make decisions, and that it's not going to, turn into this meeting where they're like, okay, well, that's great, but now let me take this back to my department and shop it around to 50 people to get feedback on the color of blanks. So making sure you have the right people in the room who are, ready to make decisions will keep everything moving. Focusing the scope of meetings. I've been to some where they're like, okay, great, we're starting a new project. Let's talk about everything, every single content type, every single, view, all the taxonomies, and it just gets really overwhelming. I don't know anyone who can focus for that long. So just covering the things that you expect to get done before your next meeting. So I like to do those maybe every 2 weeks or so. And then the real key is following up with a summary and what needs to be done to move the project forward. It's super easy to skip this stuff. I know everyone's busy and it feels like a waste of time sometimes to summarize what was decided or discussed in a meeting. But it's also so easy to get bitten by this. I was in a meeting with a client who very clearly said, I want you to make me a theme that has a giant video that automatically plays in the background that fills the entire homepage. Okay, great. So went back to my desk, made a quick little theme that had a giant background video on the homepage, sent it off to him, and he's like, nope, I didn't ask for that at all, don't want it, not what I said. Well, it was, to me, very clearly what he said, but because I didn't send him notes, there was nothing to document what I heard or what he thought he had said to make sure that we were really on the same page after we left the room. And then just including the next steps. It doesn't always have to be something super fancy, but even just a who is responsible for what before your next meeting so that you all kind of know what needs to get done to move forward. So communication is absolutely critical, not just with your clients, but also with your team members. I like to check in often, but very briefly with everyone to just kind of see what they're up to and how things are going. If there's anything I can do, to help keep things moving if they've hit a blocker. So maybe once a day, sometimes it gets pushed back to as much as every other day. I'll just check in for about 3 minutes, and it's just a quick, okay, what have you been working on? What is done? Are you stuck on anything? And what are you planning to work on? And then also making sure that you really take time as a whole team to reflect on your processes and how things are going. I would love it if my team felt comfortable enough to tell me, hey, it would really help us if you would send us your agendas farther in advance so that we could, be prepared for meetings. Or, we really don't like to meet at 1 o'clock in the afternoon because we're all coming back from lunch and we're tired. Can we push the meetings back to 2 o'clock? So whatever you can do as a team to get some of that feedback and adjust over the course of a project instead of waiting until the end of the project, or even worse, never taking the time to talk about those things, that'll really help. And lastly, it's really easy to talk about all the things that have gone wrong, but don't forget to celebrate all the successes that you have over the course of a project. It's just super important to, any new thing you've done or exciting thing you've learned, keep up the morale. It's not always easy, so it's great to celebrate every little thing that you can. Right, so do you have any questions? Or anything you want to share? I would also be really interested.
How do you go back and reflect the processes?
Right now, we're not very good about doing that on any sort of regular basis. It is very hard, and I think it's uncomfortable. A lot of teams will do it at the end of, when they time box their work into these sprints, they'll meet at the end of every sprint to do that reflection, and I think that would be great timing. Do you do this? I'm curious how it goes.
Not as much.
Not as much.
Yeah. Because our challenge is mostly more, it's trying to figure out the strategic things, but then we get stuck in the tactical day-to-day, gotta get this released out in the next week. We gotta get this module to develop this website for one of the agencies out in the next 4 weeks. So it's always like, go, go, go. It's hard to, when you're doing that, also sit back and.
Right. You need that breather in between, I
Right.
think, to do all of that wrap up. It's so easy to just jump into the next project. Yeah, I agree. Yes. And I don't have a good answer for that.
Yeah,
a
I
good
know.
solution. Other than to just get it on the calendar.
Yeah.
Anything else?
So does Drupal have any built-in modules that guide you towards Project PM? Managing their Drupal installations or Drupal implementation? Does it have any modules or to help with that?
Not that I'm aware of.
I was curious if they had any modules for PM for managing Drupal projects.
Are you looking for task management or?
What?
Do you want a Drupal module that would help with task management
Well,
for
I'm
the
saying,
project?
okay, looking more from an administrative point of view, we've got all these different sites that we're building for different agencies across the state of Iowa. And from the office that I sit in, Office of the CIO, we basically are going to need to monitor these different sites and keep looking at where the progress is with these 20 to 50 different sites that are being built. So right now it's being done spreadsheet, some maybe Microsoft project, whatever. But I was just curious if there was something in Drupal that will allow you to look at all of your installations across, and then say, all right, this is how you would, and have the list of all the team members from different projects in there that you can collaborate.
You might be able to build something out of that using support modules. Which is it's a ticketing system and allows you to have different clients. And we're building our new site now, and we're going to use that for content management issues, so that when we find something up on our content on the website, we can create a ticket, and then the content manager can fix it. You might be able to do something similar, but in our office, we use Jira for technical development.
Which one?
Jira.
Jira, okay.
Yeah, it works really well. We get multiple projects. Depending on the size of your team, it can be really cheap.
Right.
Like 10 users is like $20 a month or $30 a month.
Who are you with?
Huh?
Who are you with?
I am technical director at Illinois Legal Aid Online. We are a nonprofit based in Chicago.
Okay. So it's one Drupal website that you're managing?
It's we're in the middle of actually conversion from 4 Fusion websites to one Drupal site. Okay. And there's a lot of moving parts, and I've got 2 remote developers that are working on it with me. So having everything centralized in a web-based system is really, really important.
Sure, yeah, I agree. Makes sense. So you're using Jira right now?
Yeah. And we like it.
Yeah. Yeah, I've heard good things of Jira.
Yeah, I'm just starting to look into it. I've heard good things.